Welcome to the studio at That Nerd Show. I am Marcus Blake, and we are speaking with director Andy Palmer for his new film, The Re-Education of Molly Singer. Welcome, Andy. It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Marcus, it's good to be here. I'm excited. I'm ready to nerd out, my friend.
This is the place to nerd out. And yes, we are going to dive into some very nerdy conversation since we have a little bit more time in this interview.
Great.
So I want to jump right into talking about this film. There seems to be kind of a lot of college films coming out lately. And I don't know if that's just a thing, but this one was a very interesting one. It wasn't the typical just stupid college, film trying to be Animal House. It was a little bit more a mixture of comedy and being serious and stuff. How did this project come to you?
So I was editing a film in 2019 called Collection for the same writer producer Todd Friedman, and then my producing partner Warner Davis was producing as well. And so Todd and I just got really close during post in that movie. And he is one of us. He is a big nerd, huge pop culture fan and stuff like that. And so we'd just be sitting at dinner, geeking out. And he asked me what I wanted to do next because he knew I was also a filmmaker. And I think up till now I'd done mostly horror movies and horror comedies and stuff like that. And he was like, "What do you want to do next?" And I said, "Oh, I want to do like a weird science, like an '80s comedy." And he goes, "Oh, I got one of those." And so he kicked me the script, and it was actually called The Re-Education of David Singer. So it was male driven,
Right.
and it would, it would very like old school American Pie sort of feel to it.
Right.
Funny concept was exactly the same, and I liked it a lot. And I was like, "Hey, what if we kind of change this up a little bit?" And I was like, we've never seen a female Van Wilder, that sort of like Queen of Campus sort of movie. And I was like, that could be really fun. And I think also, humor can change, and when it's from a female perspective, we can almost get a little bit more raunchy with it now and stuff like that. And so we kind of went in that direction, and then we changed. The best friend was Hoss, and he was sort of Stifler-esque, and I was like, what if I don't think Molly would hang out with Stifler. I was like, what if he's still that same sort of snarky attitude, but a little bit more sophisticated? I was like a Nico Santos type of guy, and then we ended up getting Nico, so it was crazy. And that's how it all came to be. It was like Kevin and Todd and I retooled the script, and then started sending it out, and people really responded.
Yeah, see, I loved him from Superstore.
I love the guy.
I don't know why I fell in love with that show, but it was just it hit the nail on the head and kind of reminded me of my days of working at a Kmart when I was in high school.
Right. I love me some Kmart, man.
Yeah. Before I got the cool job of working at a video store.
Oh, dude, I'm so jealous of you. You don't even know how many video stores I begged for a job and never got hired at a video store. I have no idea why.
Really? I do. I was commenting when they came up with the Blockbuster documentary. I was commenting with people, and I've got a very good friend who's a DJ here in Dallas, and we did it. We talked about it as like we did a tour together at Blockbuster. We both got fired about the same time for having too much fun and not being enough.
Right.
But it was a lot of fun, and I love the independent ones where you could just get away with anything, and that's how I actually got introduced to Kevin Smith. I had never seen Clerks, and I worked with someone who's like, "Well, have you seen this film? He's got a new one that we just got the video for, Mallrats, but I feel like you need to see Clerks first." And we were literally watching rated R movies in the video store.
Oh, that's so great. Yeah, dude, I'm sure there was a family that came in right about the time that Jeff Anderson's reading off the litany of porn titles that he needs to order.
Yeah, I know.
So, yeah.
But anyway, it's interesting you talk about that there's never really been kind of a female version of Van Wilder. And I feel like that, Van Wilder, you expect that to be a guy.
Yeah.
That's stereotypical. But if you do it with a woman, especially where she's sort of gotten her shit together and she's a lawyer, but hasn't really gotten her shit together, type thing, I thought that was actually kind of interesting.
Yeah, I kind of equate her to Lisa from Weird Science, but like, I wanted to start with Lisa later because at the beginning she's sort of the object of the guy's affection, right?
Right.
But she gets much more interesting later when she becomes like the den mom. Like
Yeah.
Lisa is at her absolute best when the Mad Max guys are fucking up Wyatt's house. And she's like banging on the closet door and she's like, "Don't let John Wayne hear you say that. The man is dead, Lisa." That's when she's at her best, or when she's having the conversation with Bill Paxton. And I was like, we just need to transfer that to the whole movie now.
Yeah. That makes me miss Bill Paxton even more.
Oh my God.
You are in the industry in Dallas Fort Worth. You've met and had a conversation with Bill Paxton at some point.
Absolute gem of a man.
Yeah. And getting to actually talk about weird science with him for a moment.
I can't.
Yeah.
I'm jealous, bro. I'm so jealous. Although, fun fact for me, I did a web series, and I'm blanking on his name right now. His first name's Kevin, but Kevin in my web series Clueless was the guy in the rubber poop monster. He was the dude inside the monster. He was also an Ewok. He was in Blade Runner. And I'm like just blanking on his last name. Super cool guy.
Oh wow, cool.
Yeah.
All right. So in Molly Singer, who do you feel like has kind of the biggest journey? Is it really the kid, going to college and kind of coming to his own, or is it really Molly Singer?
It's Molly. Molly has the biggest arc, right? Where
Yeah.
I think her self-discovery is the most evident. She starts our movie. The first image is of this hot mess hung over on her couch with a dog licking her face and beer cans everywhere. And at the end, you see her totally put together in a better place. I personally think Elliot would have gotten to the same. He would have eventually gotten there. It just wouldn't have happened as fast. He probably would have dropped out of college, hung out at home for a few years, eventually gone back. I think at the end of the day, Brenda was a good enough mom. His dad was a good enough dad when he was alive. That Elliot would have just been a good man. I think what Molly did is accelerate his journey a little bit. But yeah, she has the big arc.
Okay. Because I kind of felt the other way with her friend, kind of rediscovering what he's
Yeah.
And you get that little foreshadowing moment when he's giving extra pudding cups in the cafeteria.
Yep. That's right. Yep.
All right, but I got to ask about this scene, just because of the times that we're living in. It's who came up with the idea to have the QAnon jokes?
That was me.
Okay.
That was me. Yes.
Because I feel like any opportunity you get to point out that they're crazy and make fun of the movement,
yeah,
is golden. And as a nerd, we have a rule. If you're going to talk conspiracy theories as if like they're real, then we have to play the X-Files theme song right behind.
Right. That would have been really funny. Score something like that would have been really funny.
Right. And during the whole thing about vaccines, when everybody was getting on the bandwagon of like, you're invading my rights, and some of the arguments, I was like, oh my God, you're literally copying from the X-Files movie with what's his face talking about FEMA and government. I was like, okay,
yeah,
I'm done now. But yeah, okay. So I had to ask about the Q movement.
Yeah. So that was originally, I can't remember. The scene was the same. The structure of the scene was the same, and it was like Haas had to go seduce the girl at the housing office. But I can't remember I can't really remember what her deal was. But at the time, we were just so deep in the Q thing, and I just thought that would be really funny. But I will say, the way that I approach this movie in terms of humor, and I think the way that modern comedy can be edgy and still survive cancel world, is that everybody has to be fair game. So everybody has to be, you have to poke fun at everybody. And my argument is like, sure, Amy behind the counter may be, she may be QAnon or something like that. But who the fuck took advantage of who in that scene? Okay, because she got exactly what she wanted out of that scene, and the liberal guy walked out like he got his ass kicked.
Yeah.
so if you're keeping score, I would say it's QAnon 1 and Polly 0 out of that deal.
Right.
So and that's really like what I wanted to try to do with the movie is like, is we poke the bear, we poke fun at different things, but everybody's fair game. Molly gets her comeuppance in a bunch of scenes and stuff like that.
So it's kind of hard to imagine Jamie Presley as a mom.
Yeah.
Because we've grown up with her. So I want to kind of go into casting. Was she kind of the first choice?
So Jamie was actually the last person cast in the movie. Because right off the bat, we actually had attached Wendy McClendon Covey from the Goldbergs and Reno
Yeah.
911. So it was Britt and Wendy, and then everybody started to come on board. But as COVID was going on, we were still like, trying to figure out when things were going to open back up a little bit because for a film, even though that we had the back to work agreement and stuff like that,
Right.
you're testing almost daily at that point.
Yeah.
We have a lot of extras and background, so it was very cost prohibitive. So we were kind of waiting to have that happen, waiting to finish the financing, waiting to get casted, and it pushed us to the point where Wendy couldn't. She had to go back to the Goldbergs, and
Yeah.
so it was. I mean, it was just like down to the wire. So Wendy went back to do the Goldbergs, and then we needed a Brenda, and then somebody presented. I think our casting director Shannon presented Jaime, and I was like, oh my, she would be awesome.
Yeah.
And Jaime was actually on vacation. So she's in North Carolina. I'm on a Zoom with her. And she has to she's like, well, listen, I like the script. I like it a lot. And she's like, you know what scene I really like? And I was like, she's not gonna say the strip club scene. I think that's the one that people would be scared of. She's like, I love that strip club scene. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. And
I
so
was going to ask about that because
yeah, I thought that was going to be such a deal breaker for people. And she's like, "That's my favorite scene. When do we shoot that?" And I was like, "It's actually your last day of shooting." She's like, "All right," she was like bummed. She was ready.
I can't go to the
And
strip club
so,
on the first date. Yeah.
so she had to go back to LA, get her kids back to LA, then fly out immediately out to Georgia and shoot with us. So, and now I can't imagine a world where Jaime is not Brenda because she just
Yeah.
is perfect in it.
No, I mean, I think that's part of it's kind of hard, getting older and these, the young actors that you grew up with and realizing that, oh my God, they can fit into the mom roles now.
Yep.
They're still hot, still wonderful. And actually, I just watched Joe Dirt not too long ago in the background while I was working. It's such a stupid, ridiculous movie, but I love. She's one of my favorite characters in that movie.
Totally. Jaime owns, if you go back through her filmography, My Name is, and all of her TV shows, she owns every single movie, every single show that she does. I was a fan of Mom, and I thought her character on Mom was so hysterical.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I agree. But it's funny that you say that. I mean, Wendy would have been great in that role.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh yeah.
great in everything. But yeah, I'm kind of with you. I can't see anybody else, especially in this strip club. And
Yeah.
her,
Yeah.
that's a lesson in consent.
Yeah. And that was my talking to Kevin and Todd. Is like that scene was always there, but I was like, we need to elevate it to the now. And what are we talking about now in society? We're talking about these things. These are topics we're coming up with. So let's take the ridiculous comedy and then we're going to flip it on its head and we're going to talk about this being a lesson in consent.
Well, and then while it's funny, but at the same time, it is important to talk about because where we are now and the rules have kind of changed and I just thank God there wasn't camera phones and all that when I was in college or the army.
Yeah, it's funny. I got this question today. Is it there was a gentleman that asked me about what is different about when you were going to college to when kids are going to college now? And I said, kids are not allowed to make mistakes now. There's eyes everywhere, and so to become a good man, there's more pressure to not act on stupid childish impulses anymore. You have to be much more cognizant at an early age of the decisions you're making because there's people around and cameras around and stuff like that are going to judge you one way or the other, whether it's fair or not.
Yeah. You're not allowed to really make those mistakes. And somebody will bring it up 20 years later, and we can't use the excuse like I was young and stupid.
Yeah, that's gone. Yep. And maybe we're better for it. I see when I saw in the younger kids that I saw on set and stuff like that, there's a level of empathy that kids have today that we never had.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's very cool. That's amazing. There's a level of knowing things about mental health and stuff like that I would never. I just be like, oh, that guy's weird, and stuff like that. And I see working with young people and stuff like that on sets, they're just so much more cognizant of caring about what other people are going through.
Yeah.
And I think that's great.
Well, and you talk let's talk about, college movies and, kind of the template for that. Would you be able to make Animal House today? And I don't
Yeah.
think you could. You
No,
can't get away with it.
no, you can, but again, you have to get more meta with the
Yeah.
things. If you're going to do these things that are now major societal no-nos that aren't just taboo, but actually like crimes,
Yeah, right.
yeah, you're gonna have to basically explain yourself. I mean, we do it in, there's a scene in Molly where they're poking at Trina at polls at the beginning, and
Yeah.
then Molly is kind of cognizant of it later. She's like, well, I think we're a little old to be slut shaming people, and I'm like, well, you just kind of did it, but at least you're cognizant of it now, and
Yeah.
so, yeah, we're always just trying to be. We're just trying to be aware that yes, we're pushing the envelope, but we are aware of the ridiculousness of it.
Right. Do you feel like that your 20s are still all about kind of making mistakes and you're still trying to figure it out?
I think my 40s are like that. I don't know. I think my
I don't
40s might be like that.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So now that you've admitted it on camera, yeah.
Yeah.
I've had that.
My wife tells me that I make mistakes all the time,
I had that with a girlfriend. I had that kind of debate, and my response was I sent a little clip of Jeff Foxworthy's comedy about women training men.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm like, that's my response to it. I'm not going to say anything, but I believe exactly what he's saying.
Yeah. So. No, for me it's weird. I'm kind of an amalgam because when I was born, I was 40. I've like always been that sort of old soul. My mom was a teacher, and we lived in a very small town, so I didn't have the luxury of getting in trouble. Like my mom was my smartphone, right? Like I couldn't get in trouble as a kid because my mom knew before it even happened. So I was always like a goody two shoes. But I think that's why I like to play. Like I would like someday I'd like to be Molly Singer and not give a shit when I was in college and stuff like that. I'm sort of more the Ty character for sure.
When I went off to college, my father's advice is, you can do what you want, don't waste money,
Yeah.
or figure out how if you do, and also learn how to get yourself bailed out of jail.
Right. Yep.
So and that was pretty much it. And I felt like, and today, 25 years later, I feel like that's kind of sound advice.
Yeah.
So, all right. Britt Robinson. It's hard to imagine this is somebody that, we've kind of known as a teenager from Dan in real life, and where she's to a wonderful actress in her 30s who I feel like is kind of that perfect template. Mm-hmm. Talk about working with her and how did she come to this project? Was she one of the first cast?
She was the first cast, and I think the second person that we sent the script to overall. So it was, she was like very tippy top of my list of people that I wanted to go to because I was a fan. I knew that she could handle it. That Molly has this sort of she has like a tall order, right? Is that you have this sort of larger than life comedy. She has to be extremely funny, but she can't be the larger than life person because then everything just spirals out of control and it gets too hammy and stuff like that. So she has to be, and I equate it to like that Van Wilder, that Ryan Reynolds, that sort of very controlled humor, almost like scalpel humor, where it's just going to dart you with these little little funny jabs. And I knew watching her in Tomorrowland, and there was another show she did called For the People, and I just love her delivery. Like I just think she has such a good delivery, good charisma. Yeah, so she read the script, and in 2 weeks, like we were on a Zoom, and she was on board. I couldn't believe it.
All right, it's time to get a little nerdy.
Yes.
So some of the questions that we like to ask filmmakers. So I'm going to start you off with this one. If you could direct either a Star Wars movie or Star Trek, what would you choose?
Dude, it's okay. So, gosh, okay. I grew up a more of a Star Wars guy, although I am a big Deep Space Nine guy because and there was a friend of a friend that said I love Deep Space Nine because they're not boldly going, they're just sort of boldly staying.
Right.
But I love Ronald Moore. Like once Ronald Moore came on that show, I was like, holy crap, this show is awesome. But I was always a Star Wars guy. My mom like introduced me to Star Wars. I'll tell you what I would do. I would go Star Trek because I'm too scared of Star Wars fans. Like you're just living up. You're setting up the legend to fail, man. Like it's just like Star Wars fans are harsh.
my one of my best friends and co-hosts on our podcast. He is the angry Irishman, as we like to call him,
Mhm.
and we kind of have to pull him back at times about you. I understand your frustration. I understand everything,
Yep.
but at the same time, we are also living in a world as an adult where we have so much Star Wars.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
we got more than just 3 movies,
Yeah.
and at least we're there. And when I say this, I am talking about the Favreau Filoni camp.
Yeah.
What they're able to do and bring us may not be as good as the original trilogy, but we're getting something. And
Yeah.
we all have problems with the sequel trilogy. I could pick it apart and everything
Sure.
else, but it's still Star Wars, and it's still better than some of the stuff that's out there.
Yeah, for sure. You're still living in this in that magical world, and like I still got the same rush.
Yeah.
Watching Force Awakens. I'm one of the rare birds. I loved Last Jedi, man. I thought Ryan Johnson. I remember sitting in a theater, and when Luke threw that fucking lightsaber over his shoulder, I was like, whoa, whoa. What are we in for now?
I'm the only one on my staff that actually likes the movie.
I thought it was awesome. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, we're gonna buck some trends here. But yeah, no, I catch
I got it was different. I still enjoy it. I like the training scenes, and I love Mark Hamill's humor.
I did too.
But to literally give you a new force power and force project yourself,
Right.
I'm like, I did not hate it. Is it as good as other things? Is it as good as some of the lightsaber duels that we've had? No. But I'm also very glad that Hayden Christensen is coming back, because I'm loving Ahsoka, and I loved the episode last week with him.
Buddy, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Filoni, I'm like, he really directed, I think, because he did the last two, 5 and 6, correct?
Yeah.
5 was like, I started really getting into it because I thought it had a nice pace, and it really felt, I think the thing that I was kind of struggling with Ahsoka is that it felt very Dave Filoni from like the animated shows from a writing and a pacing standpoint, but I didn't feel like the directing sort of like matched I don't know, it just felt a little off for me, whereas like Andor for me was perfect. I fucking loved it.
I know, and we're in agreement with that.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you could have cut out a couple of episodes, but I love the building of that story.
Yeah, but man, 5, 6 have been like, I'm like, oh, I'm in for this. Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, it's hard to be in
Really
that
hard
and try to take on that. So I'm kind of like you. If I had to direct something, like I'd want to do Star Trek.
Yeah, I feel like there's a little bit more forgiveness, and you have a little bit more freedom to move around the galaxy, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully they let Terry Matalas just do whatever he wants, and we get the next incarnation of the Enterprise, because the way they ended season 3 of Picard was brilliant.
Yeah, oh, totally. That was like, every episode of that was like a movie. I mean,
yeah, I know.
I had to hand it to Paramount Plus. Between like the Star Trek stuff and like all the Taylor Sheridan stuff, that is some high-end filmmaking going on over there, man.
Hey, that's the one streaming service I am proud to pay nearly.
Yeah. They got good stuff, man.
All right, so here's our famous nerdy question that we love to ask all of our filmmakers. So it kind of goes in the realm of superheroes. If you could have a superpower to fight the forces of evil, what would you choose?
Man, I think about this all the time. This is an internal struggle debate that I have all the time with myself. Man, I would go with being able to like Magneto, but with anything, right? So I'd be able to like if a guy pulled a gun out, I could just have him pause, something where it's like I could affect the movement or stop things with my mind, that sort of telekinetic power. That would be my jam. I'm afraid of heights. I have nightmares of, like, I grew up in Colorado. I have so many reoccurring nightmares of being on a chairlift that I fall off of, that I don't think I'd be very good at flying. Invisibility would be lost on me because I bump into shit all the time.
Are you saying that you're the great American hero?
I could be. I'm William Cat. That's what it is. I love the hair. I'm for it. So that I think I would just be able to like stop people from, like doing things. The villain that I absolutely loved, it was the first season of Jessica Jones.
Yeah,
Uh, like
David
that's
Tennant.
a cool
Yeah,
power, man. Being able to like manipulate and tell people to do whatever you want them to do. Like that's some crazy shit.
I love him as the Doctor, David Tennant, but I think that's probably my absolute favorite role of his.
Yeah, I
I
mean, great
like,
villain.
yeah, he is too good as a villain.
Yeah, yeah, he is, man.
But yeah, Magneto is. There's just so much you can do, and I think my absolute favorite scene of all the X-Men movies is just when the guard walks in and Ian McKellen.
Oh,
I think there's a little too much iron in your blood.
oh my,
Yeah,
that's a brutal one. Dude, X2 is awesome.
yeah,
X2 is awesome.
yeah.
He's got such a great line when they kind of rescue the kids at the house, at the house, and I can't remember what the guy with the flame, and he's like, "You're a god amongst men. Don't let anybody tell you different." Like he's just like so good, man.
Yeah, that's a great answer. All right, I'm going to sneak in one more question. We have this reoccurring theme about 1994 being one of the greatest years of movies, not only with a lot of the big hits, but a lot of great underrated, especially independent film.
Yeah.
What do you feel like is the best and most underrated film of 1994?
Oh man, I don't know. I don't know that I know all of the films of specifically of 1994. Okay, I would have been a freshman, maybe going to be a freshman in high school. Okay. This one might be off the cuff and it may be 94, 95, but I saw this movie, no shit, no less than 7 or 8 times in theaters. So I Married an Axe Murderer. I fucking love that movie so much. I watch it all the time, probably 3, 4 times a year.
I think that might be 95. I'll have the like,
All
but
right. Okay. So the
no,
summer, I'd have to look back at the summer before.
no, I mean that's a great underrated movie that people don't talk about. I will give you mine before we end this.
Yeah.
Airheads.
Oh, dude, yes, Airheads.
I love Adam Sandler and his dramatic roles, all that he has, been able to do
Yeah.
outside of comedy. But as just a stupid comedy, even getting past Happy Gilmore, Airheads is the most ridiculous movie.
It so is.
Yeah.
It so is. That's a great one.
Yeah.
I saw that one at Movie Land, man, when I was like, yeah, that was like seventh, eighth grade. Oh, so good. Brendan Fraser, like,
Yeah.
I mean, what a run from like Encino Man, Airheads. I mean, he was on a tear.
Yeah. So I don't know. Anytime that's on TV, I'm like, I will stop and watch.
Yeah.
And the rock and roll references. I mean, literally when they're quizzing the police, who did you go with in the big David Lee Van Halen, breakup?
Yeah. Yeah, dude. So I'm gonna go watch that movie now.
I know.
Watch that movie. Yep.